Welcome to Insight into Iceland for the final match day of the 2021 Mid-Season Invitational. Royal Never Give Up taking on Damwon Kia. Great, very entertaining series today. Really good stuff. Let's talk through how the games played out and then share some thoughts on it. So in game one, we had team comps of Gragas, Udyr, Lucian, Kaisa, Nautilus for RNG. And Damwon responded with the Scion, Morgana, Akali, Tristana, Leona. Uh, there, I think one note I just want to throw in for game one here is RNG got to pick blue side for themselves, and digging into the rule book a little bit, which some people on the Oracle's Elixir Discord did to help out, this was decided on a coin flip. Apparently that's been the rules for a few years now. They used those rules at both MSI and Worlds. Rather than having, I think it makes a little more sense for Worlds in the knockout stage. The coin flips are involved because you have play within the groups and the teams didn't get to play directly against each other, so you don't have an obvious way to seed them versus one another. Other than, in the quarterfinals, you'd have a first seed against a second seed from a different group, so you could give the first seed an advantage, but once you get to the semifinals, if it's two first seeds from their own groups, you got to have something to break, to determine between them. At MSI, feels pretty odd because these teams were in the same group in the Rumble stage. And you could either award the first game side selection to Damwon for finishing first in the group, or you could award it to RNG for winning the head-to-head matchup between the two teams during that group stage. They stuck with a coin flip. I think it had an influence on this series, but that's something that hopefully they'll be able to address and have more robust rules around in the future. So game one, those are the team comps. Scion is very comfort for Khan, but not being played a whole lot elsewhere. Lucian was a bit of a new look for Cryan, who had been much more about that kind of standard control mage kind of thing. So RNG, I think, had some advantages in the lanes. Gragas able to push into the Scion, Lucian into the Akali, and they got ahead on farm. They picked up first blood. There was a 5v5 for the Rift Herald that Damwon opted into, even though they had a comp that was much weaker at that in a much weaker point of its power curve at that stage. And this is something that Damwon have done too much in the past, and there had been signs, late in the LCK season that I thought that they'd been backing off some of these and being more willing to give them up, but they didn't do that here. They lost that Herald 5v5, and composition had a big influence on that. So RNG got control of that. They got to stack the dragons. As the game rolled out, RNG just held their advantage. Finally, they got a catch on ShowMaker in the mid lane during a dragon setup. Used that to convert that catch into a kill on a different target, and that gave them control to pick up the Dragon Soul. Damwon did find a way to win a kind of a desperation team fight that gave them potentially a chance to Baron, but they didn't have quite enough control to finish that off. Then it came down to another really big team fight on the Elder. RNG were in control of the Elder, they secured it, but Damwon won the team fight, so they were still hanging in there. They're kind of gripping on by the tips of their fingers above the abyss, but RNG ultimately were in control the whole time. Even with those little setbacks, they managed to pick up a second Elder Dragon and use that to close out the game. So RNG in control the whole way through, but Damwon made it close and fought pretty valiantly. Game two, Damwon switched onto the blue side. They pick up Lee Sin this time. They get Morgana, Xerath as a very unusual kind of a pocket pick for ShowMaker, and a Tristana Leona bot lane. RNG pick up a Jace to respond to the Lee Sin. They stick with the Udyr. In fact, Wei played Udyr all 5 games today. They also had an Orianna for Cryan, kind of standard comfort for him. Kaisa, which is also a champion that was played by Gala all 5 games this series. So Udyr Kaisa was their pairing the entire time. And Damwon were happy to let them use it. And then a Rel in the support. Wei did a really, really smart first clear. I believe this is the game where, so he started on his top side, so on his red buff from the red side of the map, and Gala and Ming kind of faked a leash on the blue buff, took some damage from it, came back to lane a little bit late to try to fake out the pathing. And then what happened was ShowMaker got a little prio window and put a ward on the Raptors, and the ward saw that the Raptors were being taken, but it didn't see Wei himself. So based on the movement of the Raptors and the fact that Wei was leaning up into the brush while clearing them instead of leaning towards the red buff pit, I think it was possible for ShowMaker and Damwon to know that that Wei was pathing from the top side to the bottom side, but potentially that they didn't know for sure where he had actually started his path. But my feeling is that they knew he was pathing to the bottom side. But because they had kind of assumed maybe that he was starting from bot side clearing up due to that fake out by Gala and Ming, or just the expectation of maybe that Jace might get a priority in the early lane and that Udyr would want to path to the top side where he's going to have lane prio. The result was that Ghost and Barrel had set up a wave state where they were looking to crash in a big built-up wave, let it bounce back to them, and then be safe on the completion of Udyr's full clear, or be pulling that wave in for Canyon to come and gank it. But Wei did something really, really smart, which is he skipped all of his bot side camps and ganked the bot lane right, a few seconds before that big wave crash was about to start getting pushed to the turret. So it was a moment where Ghost and Barrel had no option to back off of that wave. If they do, they have just set up a freeze at like level 2, the wave being frozen against them. They've lost that lane without even having a chance to be in that lane. And also, Ghost and Barrel had set up that lane that it was actually going to do something positive for them. So he ganked at that timing where they just had no expectation that it was a vulnerable window for them based on them doing the right thing. But he read that timing and they just didn't expect him to skip all those camps. So that led to 2 kills in the bot lane on both Ghost and Barrel. And then there was another fight at the Herald, another 5v5, which, again, I would say that RNG had slightly better tools for it. And RNG just crushed on one at that fight. So they were way, way, way in the lead. No pun intended. But, the game continued to play out. Damwon got a steal on the 3rd dragon. I believe ShowMaker stole it with just a Xerath spell. And when RNG tried to force an engage after that to kind of capitalize on the setup that they had put in place, Damwon managed to back up, get a couple of kills, finish the mid-outer turret, and now they're actually in a decent spot. So their comeback was happening. Game continued to play out, and then kind of the highlight moment of the game, I think Kanyan landed a binding on Cryan to set this up, but then Khan jumped in immediately with a beautiful insec. That was a big pick on a carry. They took a Baron off of that and just sieged out with the Baron to win the game. So it was a big comeback from Damwon off of some really smart early game stuff from RNG, and a really good game. Blue side wins again. RNG back to blue side for game 3. This time they go with Gnar, Udyr again, Ryze, Kai'Sa again, and Leona. Damwon go with a Nocturne in the top lane. They stick with their Morgana. They bring out a Syndra, as I believe this was a response pick to the Ryze, and they had gone for a Jinx Thresh first rotation as well. So putting a lot of carry opportunity for Ghost with the Thresh to protect the Jinx. Usually you're seeing Thresh Tahm Kench with some of these less mobile carries like Jinx or Varus. So Wei, I think there have been some pretty creative kind of early paths from Wei and from RNG in the first 2 games, and he wanted to double down and do something even more creative. So he went for kind of a cheesy gank level 3 into the mid lane, but ShowMaker used his Syndra spells to just disengage that and was totally fine. Wei just continued from that all the way up into the top lane, ganked top lane, got nothing there either. So Canyon was able to be way ahead on farm pace, and I think he got a gank into the bot lane as well. And Damwon were in control of the game, and they were just, much very far ahead in their jungle clear pace and so on. But RNG managed to trade some map control and be a little bit in control on the top side and take the first Herald. They took the first turret, and meanwhile Damwon were playing more on the bottom side. So that tied up the gold, and Damwon's advantage had basically just turned into a dragon advantage, and that was it. That led to a dragon fight a little bit later that RNG won. Now they're fully back in the game on par, despite the big lead that Damwon had and should have been able to earn more with it. Damwon got a pick on Wei and went to force a Baron. So they were 5v4. The way this whole scenario played out, I think you should definitely go and watch this clip if you're interested in it or watch this whole game. But there was a bit of a dance going on. Both Dragon and Baron were up. Damwon were on 2 dragons, so picking up that 3rd dragon would be nice. It would put them on soul point, but Baron is obviously more valuable than a 3rd dragon would be. So Damwon were trying to do this little dance because they knew that Wei was up clearing vision around the Baron. Damwon knew if they committed too hard to that dragon, RNG are probably going to force the Baron. RNG might not have enough damage to finish the Baron before Damwon can actually respond, but RNG's pressure on that Baron would mean that they were pulling Damwon into a vulnerable situation to approach the Baron as the second team there to try to contest it. And with a Gnar, with a Leona and a Ryze and all of these things that can put out CC on your front line as they engage, I think Damwon probably, they didn't want to be in a position where they had to move in for the team fight. They had some tools for that, but I think, other than the Nocturne, you didn't really have a dive buddy. You didn't have the best primary engage overall in this comp. You had Nocturne Thresh and like Morgana flashing in. So they didn't want to be in that position where they had to respond to pressure. They wanted to be the ones putting the pressure on. So instead, they leaned up, they found a pick on Wei. They had chunked him out, and he was kind of running upriver, and Khan used the Nocturne ult to kind of chase him down and pick him off. So now they're 5v4, and they're the ones standing on the Baron. They go for it. They're burning it down. They all stack up in the back of the pit, and Ming sees that and drops a Leona ult perfectly on top of, I'm pretty sure it hit 4 people and at least stunned 2 or 3 of them. RNG dogpile into the pit, 4v5, win that fight, and that basically won them the game. There's a flashy play in a bottom lane siege during that Baron where Gala dove in with Kai'Sa ult and assassinated Ghost and used a stopwatch. It was very flashy and impressive, but the game-winning play was Ming engaging at the Baron there. And RNG take this game, another blue side win. So, we go to game 4. Damwon do something completely different. Aatrox, Nidalee, Renekton, Tristana, Rell. All kinds of aggression, all kinds of skirmish, and then the kind of the Tristana Rell scaling backup factor. But this is all about smashing the top side of the map. AP jungler, 2 AD solo laners who can land the initial CC to set up the Nidalee spear and just blow people up. RNG respond with a Gragas again, of course Udyr and Kai'Sa again, another Ryze, and another Leona. So this was 4/5 of the same comp from last game, except a Gragas instead of a Gnar. So Damwon are playing to the top side of the map. They are playing really high pressure with their solo lanes going into the jungle, counter jungling. They invade on a red buff and force a 3v3 fight with the top jungle mid, but it didn't quite work out. RNG managed to win that fight and get a couple of kills, partly because Ming had timed a good reset and then kind of deployed into that fight. He was there a bit late for it, and I don't think it really made an effective difference, but the fact he was able to read that coming and go and contribute to it was a nice read. But in the end, I think Damwon had a good idea there, and they had good champions for it, but they couldn't quite execute that fight. RNG get a little bit ahead off of that. So now RNG, have slowed the snowball down, but Damwon are still in the lead, and they wanted to be way in the lead with this comp. So Damwon still have control of the top side. Khan is doing really, really well, laning the Aatrox into the Gragas. So Damwon are able to pick up the first Herald, and then they find a pick on Gala in the bot lane. That gives them the first dragon. And then RNG try to get themselves back in the game, diving the bot turret, but it fails. They give up a couple of kills, and Damwon just punish all over the map, and now this snowball is fully back online. It grows really big. RNG did find a pick on Khan that led to a Baron attempt, but Damwon pushed in to contest that. ShowMaker, who had been very present in terms of putting the pressure in the right places with his Renekton coming out of the lane and using his priority and so on, he really led this chase and effectively suicided in to set up a fight for the rest of his teammates, and Ghost picked up a pentakill, and that was the kind of the official end of the game. So some really good play from Damwon as a very different style. They weren't playing to control dragons and stack. They went for the top side of the map. They went for skirmishing. They went for snowball, and they just crushed this game and did really, really well. So now we go to game 5. RNG have final side selection. They're on blue side, so they can thank the coin flip for that. They go with the Gragas, Udyr, Nocturne, Kai'Sa, Leona. So the only difference here, they take Nocturne themselves, put it in the mid lane. Damwon go with their Aatrox again, a Rumble jungle, Jace mid, which ShowMaker had played previously in the tournament, and they get the Varus this time with a Tahm Kench. So some interesting tools there for Damwon. Not really much engage. You have a Rumble ult to try to start a fight, but it's not really anything. So very much like a poke comp that wants to set out first on the objectives and have you engage into them. But RNG had some pretty good tools for engaging into you with Gragas, with Nocturne diving the backline, Leona, non-committal engage, especially as a secondary engage tool. And of course the Udyr can face check things. Wei gets another first blood gank into the bot lane. Just a straight up, he had a good gank. And then, and before that, in the level 1 kind of scuffles, ShowMaker had been caught out a slightly mispositioned and had to use his flash. And it must have been 10 or 15 seconds before his flash was back up. That's how it looked. It didn't have an actual timer, but that's how it looked on the screen. Ming found a roam into mid lane and coordinated with Wei, and they ganked ShowMaker and killed him. And his flash was so close, like less than one wave timer up. So that was like the last wave they could have pulled off this play. And that was so good. That control of the mid lane that generated led to a lot of map pressure from Cryan, and he did a really good job using his Nocturne ult or the threat of his Nocturne ult to put pressure on the side lanes and on especially on Khan and ShowMaker as the game played out. So RNG got control of the top side of the map off of this. I think the Gragas this time around was doing better in lane. From what I remember, RNG picked up the first Herald for themselves this time. They got the first turret off of it, and Damwon had to trade down by picking up the first dragon as an exchange. So then that's what led to this mid-game control of, having the first turret down means you are the one snowballing and rotating your pressure around the map. RNG used that to attack the solo lanes, like I said, with the Nocturne ults, or even just disappearing into fog, and now you got to say, hey, if they land anything on me, Nocturne ult's going to follow up on it. So Khan had to play really scared, and it was just relentless from RNG. They had over a kill a minute, I think, in this game. Xiaohu made some really big plays on the Gragas engages, and they closed it out. Unfortunately, kind of the least close and least entertaining game of the series, but RNG played really well and closed it out. So they win the series 3-2. Blue side won every single game of the series. And again, RNG can, to some extent, thank the coin flip for that, and I'm being facetious, but I think blue side and the draft advantages that led to was pretty influential in this series. So a couple of takeaways. I think, finals MVP is always an interesting conversation. If I was going to go tournament-wide MVP, I'd probably pick Xiaohu. I think he played so well to kind of... he was the standout member in the group stage. I thought he was really good in the Rumble stage as well. And he was really big in this final series and some of his laning and some of his playmaking and engages. I think you could also talk about Wei's creative pathing and the things that created. It didn't always pan out. It didn't always generate what he wanted it to generate, but it put a lot of pressure on. I think he was a more visible contributor in this series than Canyon was, and was the better jungler. In the written version of this, I made some jokes about the coin flip and the blue side and calling that the MVP of the series. And I think, like I said, I think this was pretty influential and was a big deal for the series. I thought Cryan was really good in these finals. His ability to go outside of what I would have seen as his comfort zone and just play the control mages was really good. He played Lucian, he played Nocturne, he did play the Orianna, played some Ryze, which is kind of in his pocket, but the map mobility of it was a contributor. So I thought Cryan actually stepped up quite a bit for these finals. And ultimately, Gala got the official nod because people really like damage output and high kill numbers. And that one really big flashy play, I didn't think, to me, Gala was probably the last player I would have selected from RNG personally. And my choice would be Ming. I thought his roams were timed so well. He had engages in just the right moments. And the plays that he made, and he contributed a lot to receiving those ganks from Wei as well. And his plays were all at the perfect times, basically won games off of the things he did. So I just want to shout out Ming for having a great tournament and being my finals MVP, but not the official finals MVP, to be clear. Whoever voted for that picked Gala. I don't agree, but that's how it works. And I just want to also celebrate what Khan and ShowMaker brought out. I think, ShowMaker, of course, I've praised him a lot in the past. I think, the flexibility he brought and the way he played, he wasn't the best in Game 5, got targeted in that one and didn't have his best performance. But the things he did on the Renekton, the Xerath game he pulled out were really good. And I think Khan stepped up a lot in these finals and had probably his best games of the tournament. Ultimately, it wasn't enough, but I think that Khan, Canyon, ShowMaker trio does make for a very strong top side, and we saw that when Ghost and Barrel managed to kind of... their early games weren't great this series. They gave up a lot of deaths to ganks and so on, partly because they got targeted very intelligently by Wei and by Ming kind of receiving those ganks. But, they weren't as bad or as vulnerable as they were against Mad, and if they can kind of clean that up a little bit, then I think that Khan, Canyon, ShowMaker trio is certainly good enough to continue to contest and nearly won this finals. So I just want to kind of praise them for their performance as well, and Khan especially for having kind of a comeback finals series. So those are my thoughts on the finals. I thought it was, going to 5 games is always very exciting. good series, probably the highest level of play we've seen at the tournament, which admittedly wasn't the highest level of play that we could have seen. And I think by Worlds, everyone will be playing probably noticeably better. But it was exciting to watch, and if you haven't watched it all, I encourage you to watch some of those games, and just enjoy the entertainment value that they brought out. In the written version of this, if you check out the link in the description, I've shared win probability charts for each of the 5 games, so you can kind of click through those and see just how swingy, especially games 2 and 3 were. A lot of ups and downs, and the comebacks were statistically pretty improbable. So that's kind of fun to look at. And I've also shared a PDF of my game notes for the entirety of MSI. And I've shared before how I take very detailed game notes of all the different things happening in the game, the things that stand out to me. And you can see my drafts of the one-tweet summaries for all the games as well. So you can check out that PDF if you want to, and enjoy that. Give me some feedback if you think that kind of thing is interesting or worth reading. So that's going to do it for Insight into Iceland. This was the MSI Finals. And looking forward to summer. I think there's a lot of great storylines that are now set up for summer in all the different regions. So enjoy the summer split as it comes up. And for now, we're going to take a little bit of a break, and I'm going to catch up on sleeping in for a few days. So thanks for watching.